What is good, everyone? Welcome to the channel. My name is Paul. I make videos about Japanese society, life, and culture from the viewpoint of a long-term foreign resident. I've been here for over 20 years, and one of the things I really like to do on this channel is take things that people commonly feel they know about Japan, images that people have about this place, and go down under the surface, talk about the shades of gray and the nuances that most people don't realize about commonly held beliefs or ideas about Japan. And of course, you know, that's how it is all over the world. I mean, if you don't live someplace, or an actual citizen who was born and grew up there, you can't be expected to know these things. And I would say that actually some of the things I'm going to point out today, Japanese themselves maybe have never really thought about because they've just always taken it for granted. Like, they grew up here, and so that's just the way it is, and don't have the other culture comparison that I can make by virtue of being here as a foreign resident. So I'm going to start off with one that is actually just kind of, culturally speaking, interpreted differently. There's a phrase that you'll often hear that is Japanese respect nature. And I think that's absolutely true, but culturally, the meaning of respect here is actually different. If you say Americans respect nature, you'll usually come up with the image of wildlife conservation and people who go camping and backpacking who have the motto of pack in, pack out, like whatever you take into the wilderness you bring back out with you, so you don't leave any human touch behind, right? Basically respecting the wild and keeping it wild. Now in Japan, respect doesn't really mean that. Of course, there's nature lovers who go camping and hiking, they pack out what they pack in, right? They do that here too. But I'm walking next to an example of the other way, or the real way that Japan respects nature. Not out of keeping the wild wild, but it's respect actually out of fear. And can you really blame them? Because Japan is a nation that has always been beset by natural disasters, earthquakes, typhoons, torrential rains that bring landslides and flooding, not to mention tsunamis and, of course, the occasional volcano that will erupt. So Japan, being a nation just used to natural disasters, the respect for nature comes out of protecting oneself from nature's fury. So it means concreting rivers like the one I just passed. It means concreting hillsides like the one behind me to help prevent landslides next to these houses that I'm walking past. This is not judgmental on my part. I'm not saying that one way is better than the other in terms of the idea of respecting nature. It's just the way it is. I mean, I want things like this to prevent accidents that can cause death, property damage, everything else. Basically, Japan's respect for nature comes out of centuries of misery caused by natural disasters. I think, personally, this is also reflected in the traditional Japanese gardens that you see at Buddhist temples, and that is, nature gardens here are often sculpted to be some kind of perfect representation of nature. Trees at Buddhist temples have copper wiring wound around the limbs to bend them over decades, if not centuries, into perfect representative shapes. And think about the art of bonsai. What is bonsai but to take a little tree, put it in a little pot so it can never grow very big, and you trim it just so, and you shape it just so to make it a perfect presentational form of nature. It's control. It's controlling nature. And that is born out of the respect for nature, that you have to protect yourself from it. And like I said, of course, there are people who appreciate the wild here in Japan. Nature lovers who like to go out and hike and, trek through Hokkaido and everything else. But when we say Japanese respect nature, this is kind of what we mean. The next commonly held thought about Japan is that it's a very polite nation. And on the surface, that seems like a perfectly acceptable thing to say. Yeah, Japanese people are polite. They treat each other well. But again, compared to how we think of politeness in America, for instance, where you feel you need to be polite to someone out of the goodness of your heart, or that you make some kind of heartfelt gesture to help someone, and it's again kind of based on personal or individuality. Whereas in Japan, the politeness is really formal. It's encoded. It's encoded in the actions that people are meant to take in society. It's encoded in the language and the hierarchy. You know what language you're supposed to use with your seniors and your elders and people who are more important than you. And all of that politeness is built into the societal acculturation and training that children get through schooling and by their parents. And so, yes, Japan is a very polite nation, but it's more about the formality of encoding it in order to have a society that just works really peacefully, all about harmony, all about keeping the peace and harmony. And the politeness encoding is one of the things that keeps that going. This is why sometimes it can begin to feel overly formal or impersonal. I think that's the other thing, that in the West we look at politeness as kind of this personal, like this transaction between people that is a deeper connection, whereas in Japan it's just kind of by the manual. Like you go into a convenience store and they're going to go through how they treat a customer based on what the manual tells them to do, and that's just the way it is. And again, this is not judgmental. It's not saying one is right or wrong. It's just how the society functions. This keeping the peace and harmony in society brings us to our next strong idea that many people hold about Japan, including the Japanese themselves, which is Japan is this innately collectivist, harmonious society where people really pull together because of the ingrained politeness factors, the linguistic factors, and everything else. The fact is, Japan doesn't always get along harmoniously. And you can see plenty of this in its past, and back in the days when there were more protests, back in the days when there were more uprisings, depending on where you're looking in history. And even in today's Japan, you've got the situations of rising awareness about workplace harassment, pawa harassment, as they call it, more rising acknowledgement of widespread bullying issues in schools and also in workplaces. It's not always about getting along. Like, Japanese are people like anyone else, and sometimes Japanese ostracize and outcast and basically don't harmoniously interact with everyone. And the whole idea of kuki o yomu, or reading the air, people are always a little bit aware, or on edge is too strong a term, but in a way it's fitting. You're always trying to kind of be aware of how you're fitting in with your surroundings. And so it's not always like it just works. It's not inherently collectivist and everyone knows what to do. Why did I choose to climb a giant staircase? A lot of it is people, trying to figure it out as they go along, right? And I've mentioned in a past video that this is one of the reasons why you end up with some hikikomori, the shut-ins, the people who've just kind of given up on greater society. And it's basically like they've just decided they can't deal with the constant reading the air. They can't deal with the social pressures, and so they become shut-ins, which is one of Japan's big problems. So again, not good or bad, it's just one of those things that one of Japan's greatest strengths is also a source of some weaknesses. Let me get to the top of these stairs and catch my breath before I continue. Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about is a image of Japan, or a belief about Japan, that I both agree with and disagree with simultaneously. And that is that the Japanese can be cold or emotionally distant. And this is a long-held stereotype in the West about the Japanese, that, they are inscrutable and they never show their feelings and that sort of thing. It's true that the Japanese don't show their feelings in the same way that Westerners do. I think one prime example of this is that Japanese do try to suppress outward shows of emotion a little bit more. And so mothers tell their children here to watch people's eyes. Like, eyes is where the emotion cannot be so easily hidden. And I think, honestly, this is why Japan can get along with people wearing masks regularly in society, as allergy concerns or concern about air pollution, that kind of thing. So when the pandemic hit, people wearing masks, it was already completely normalized here. But the reason I disagree with this is I feel like a lot of the emotional distance that people image or imagine about Japan is large cities like Tokyo, which is, I think, more of a big city thing than a Japan thing. Tokyo can feel pretty emotionally distant because there's just so many people, you can't interact. But when I get out into the countryside, I find it very easy to fall into conversation with local people. And while they may not be like really emotionally charged conversations, they're very normal. They're very interesting. They're very thoughtful. They're very fulfilling interactions in a way. So the idea that they're distant or cold, I think that impression can really be emphasized if your main experiences are visiting Tokyo and being amongst the Tokyo Sarariman rush and all of the Tokyoites who are going to and from their daily things, and they have their friends and their activities, but they're not really going to interact much with strangers. And again, getting back to like keeping societal harmony and politeness being baked into the manners and language of Japan, Japan prioritizes a sort of conscientiousness that is given to everyone rather than shows of affection or rather than like performative acts. It's just already within the air of the society and culture that people are conscientious towards each other, and that's how you show affection. And within families, I guess the stereotype I always hear that is not just Japan, but also Asian families in general, like care is shown for how you take care of each other. Like love is not shown by saying I love you, but rather it's shown through food. I always think of this when my students tell me that they can't wait to go home over their spring break or their winter break and eat their mother's cooking. They're not going to go home and find their mother say, "Oh, I love you, it's so great you're home," because Japanese don't say I love you out loud in that way. But instead they show love in these other ways. And one thing I'd like to add is that I've talked about the concept of meiwaku several times on this channel, which is Japan functions largely because people are worried about causing nuisance for others. That meiwaku is basically this idea of behavior that is a nuisance or is troublesome for people around you, and so you want to avoid that. And that is a cultural trait that's highly ingrained, so that Japanese people are trying to actively avoid meiwaku. A Japanese acquaintance put this in a way that I intrinsically understood but hadn't really correctly put in words yet. And while meiwaku is often translated to nuisance or troublesome, that's kind of from the view of the person experiencing it, like, oh, this is a nuisance, I don't like this. Whereas meiwaku is often considered inside the brain of the person thinking about, if I do this, will it cause trouble for others? It's an active thing happening in your brain, like, if I do this, will it be meiwaku? If I do that, will it cause trouble for others? And so meiwaku really encaptures or wraps up this concept of conscientiousness because it comes from, I guess, the user themselves. They're considering beforehand, is this going to cause trouble for anyone? And that's what's really baked into the culture that makes it work the way it does, and where kuki o yomu, the reading the air, comes together with that. You're trying to discuss, you're in a situation, you're trying to decide what is the best behavior, what is the best thing to do to fit in and not cause trouble. Two quick ones. The myth that Japanese food is uniformly healthy You always hear Japanese food is healthy. This is what I hear from Japanese more than anyone. Japanese food is very healthy. I think that if you are considering the old-fashioned washoku traditional Japanese food, it's pretty healthy. It's a lot of vegetables, it's decent protein, you've got your staple, rice or whatever it may be, and yeah, that's relatively healthy. But modern Japanese food with convenience store food and supermarket pre-made meals, frozen dinners, fast food, including the Japanese style fast food like the beef bowl restaurants, ramen, not particularly healthy, instant ramen, not particularly healthy. So the modern Japanese food landscape, well, in many ways better than the United States, for example, isn't inherently all that healthy all by itself. And I always maintain that the problem with America is it's partially the food, but a great part of it is the portions. We just eat too much in America. The other myth or belief that some people have about Japan that I'll quickly talk about is that there is very little individuality and that Japan suppresses creativity. That's just dumb. I mean, have you seen the art, the music, the movies, the animation, everything that comes out of Japan? I mean, the fashion, the underground cultures. Again, just go to Tokyo and walk around and see just what you can find that is so this huge variety of something for everyone and subcultures for everyone, and everyone's got their thing, and people are creating left and right within those cultures. That's just I don't understand why people still say that. They've got this image of like the faceless salary man from the 1980s, and they've got this fossilized view of Japanese culture or what Japanese people are, and that's just a dumb one. It's not true. Not to mention, there's plenty of Japanese YouTubers that probably you don't watch because they YouTube in Japanese. Speaking of which, if you want to learn Japanese, one of my sponsors, Japonin, is offering free lessons that you can, 2 free trial lessons basically. I have a link below. Use my code and you can get 2 free trial lessons and join up with them, and you'll be supporting the channel that way. The last one I'm going to talk about is one that I've thought about a fair amount and just kind of had trouble wrapping my mind around for the longest time. Trying to decide if this is true or not, or is it, again, shades of gray. Basically, how do we parse the issue of Japanese are secular or Japanese are not religious? I say my grand idea was that I was going to talk about this last one as I pass this shrine right here. But as so often happens when I do these walk and talks, someone's operating heavy machinery and it's too noisy to film here. Please give me a moment. So much for preserving the wa of the religious space. Anyway, are Japanese religious? Are they not religious? Are they secular? Most people will tell you that the Japanese are not religious, that it's a very secular society. And it's true, and it's not true at the same time. Like pretty much everything I've talked about today, there's levels to it. There's shades of gray, there's nuance. While the Japanese might not hold the belief systems and religiosity in their mind that their ancestors might have when they consider visiting a Shinto shrine or engage in Buddhist rituals, the truth is they still do it. My students still go do Hatsumode at the beginning of the year. Hatsumode is the first shrine visit of the new year, where you go and pray for that year and you make your first offering of the year. And I asked them, well, why do you do it? And it's really, the answer that comes out is tradition. That's what we do. Why do you have the Shichigo-san ceremony, the coming of age ceremonies at 3, 5, and 7 for boys and girls, where you go to the shrine dressed in kimono, traditional clothing, and you have a blessing said over the children by the and a purification done by the Shinto priest. These days, it doesn't feel like it's done so much out of a belief, but rather it's a tradition that you do in Japan. It's one of those events that you uphold and maintain, which is just like many other Shinto rituals and burials and like interment of the body, and all those things are part of the Buddhist traditions here. People still go through with them, but no one really goes to Buddhist temples and worships and meditates and prays. Obviously there are people who are devout Buddhists and devout Shinto followers, but in general it's become a secular society, but still has all of the practical or in practice trappings of the religion. So it's complicated. Is Japan religious? Or, I mean, some people will say, like, if you go through the motions, like if you go to the shrine, you throw the money in the box, you clap your hands, you bow, you pray, you're doing religion. Even if you don't believe what you're doing actually is talking to the kami-sama, the gods, you're doing religion. Like, you're still performing a religious act, and therefore it's religion. Perhaps, or maybe it's become cultural practice in a way that's just uniquely Japanese. It's a very interesting phenomenon. I actually came across this term recently, which is implicit religion. That basically means that people are going through religious practices within the daily life of the culture, but not out of a sense of belief, or formal belief at the very least. I guess formal belief, that's one of those things that is squishy. Like, how do we actually define that? That's why I've wrestled with this question in my brain. Are the Japanese religious? Are they not religious? And the answer is not easy. Like, I've laid out to you what the issue is, and I'm going to say at the end of it, I'm not really sure I have an answer. Like, I haven't decided if that really is religion or not. So let us know in the comments what you think. Is it religion, or is it just now part of the fabric of society in a secular way or in some other way? Might be interested to hear your thoughts. Honestly, I could keep going. There's a number of other ones that I could talk about today. 3 more come to mind off the top of my head, but I don't want the video to get too long, so I want to invite you to ask questions, give your own thoughts about the things that I just talked about, and let me know if you'd like to see a second video on this very same topic where I talk about the other ones that I didn't mention today. But at any rate, I really thank you for watching this particular video. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do that is to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done that yet. What are you doing? Do it now. And if you want to support directly, i.e. more financially, you can become a member of the channel. Members will see my videos early, get special emojis, titles, have a members message board, those kind of perks. I do have an Instagram, go follow me over there. It's just Exjapter, same as this channel name. I have a couple of sponsors below, so if you're interested in the Japanese lessons or you're interested in a Japanese snack box from SakuraCo, I have links below, and if you use my code, you'll get discounts. And at the end of the day, thank you so much for watching this particular video. I hope you enjoyed it. Join the comments. I have a lot of long-term residents who spread their wisdom down there as well, so I encourage you to read them, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.